Welcome to StabtheDragon Productions for episode number 265 and Intro to Whiskey episode number 6, I think. Today we are celebrating a whiskey holiday known as Annual World Whisky Day. Coming to you from Fort Worth, Texas on Saturday, May 16th, 2026, where it is currently 87 degrees. And currently in the United States, this is also Armed Forces Day. On this show, I'm going to discuss World Whisky Day and give kind of an intro to drinking a whiskey. And the whiskey that I'm currently going to be sipping on is Brenne. This is a French single malt from the Cognac region of France. What is World Whisky Day? Blair Bowman was a student at the University of Aberdeen in Scotland and was a whiskey enthusiast. And he just thought it would be fun to start a World Whisky Day. And so he did in 2012. Yeah. And it's intended simply to celebrate whiskey. Its date is not set on the 16th of May. It is the third Saturday of May annually. And that also coincides with some whiskey festivals in Scotland, I believe. So this holiday encourages the responsible enjoyment and exploration of whiskeys from around the world. And so to the French, who have a mighty fine whiskey here, and I believe this is finished in some apple brandy casks, because I'm definitely getting some apple brandy or something. Maybe it's cognac. I'm not sure what this is finished with. Let me see. French Limousine Oak and cognac cask. There you go. So I'm getting the cognac. I knew I was getting some kind of fruit there. I'm not real familiar with cognac, but to me it tasted kind of like apple. But well, that is definitely a tasty single malt. So let's talk about whiskey a little bit. It is a distilled spirit made from grain, water, yeast, aged in wooden casks, notably oak, and the standard for the lowest alcohol by volume or proof, 40% ABV or 80 proof. Whiskeys are generally identified by their source of origin and their type. Canadian blended whiskeys originate in Canada, and they're blends of several different separately distilled whiskeys. Scotch whiskey comes from Scotland and is typically single malt, although they also do blends. Irish whiskey made in Ireland typically blends, although some single malts. Bourbon is exclusively from America, and corn has to be 51% of the mash bill or recipe for bourbon. And then it's got to be aged in new charred oak barrels. So that's a general introduction to whiskey. How do we enjoy it? Most people begin their whiskey journey by drinking whiskey mixed with something else, like Coke, or in something more fancy like a cocktail. Many people like it on the rocks, that is, with ice, which waters it down. It reduces the harshness of it some, lowers that ABV, but also dilutes some flavors. Some of us tend to be purists and prefer our whiskey neat, straight up, just like this. No ice, no mixer, just you and the whiskey. Sadly, many people get introduced to whiskey in an irresponsible way by partying as teenagers and getting drunk and whatnot. Alcohol is actually a poison, and overconsumption can damage the brain and other organs and lead to alcoholism. But done properly, however, whiskey can be a wonderful culinary delight. It can be sipped for whiskey's unique characteristics and flavors. This single malt from France, I've never tasted any. I mean, I can tell it's a single malt. I've tasted other single malts, but this has a unique flavor that I've never tasted anywhere else. And so that is kind of unique to this brand, unique to France, maybe, because they use some French oak in there as well as cognac casks. So whiskey reflects the nature of the terroir, the land, the water, the climate of wherever it is made. And so consumed studiously, whiskey can offer a lot of history, tradition, and science, as well as flavor and pleasure. So recommendations for beginners. That's kind of what I'm going to focus on here. So if you are of legal age and are considering exploring whiskey, where should you start? There are literally thousands of brands of whiskey out there, thousands of labels. Is there any common sense way to perhaps explore all these types of whiskey, or to find the one whiskey that I can call my whiskey? Many people are content with drinking just their favorite whiskey and their whiskey and only that. And there's nothing wrong with that. For me, I prefer variety, experimentation, winding my way through all the different paths, fields, and forests of whiskey. And so here are some of my recommendations. If you want to explore whiskey, first of all, know your palate. What are your favorite foods and spices? Do you prefer more of a bland diet with little seasoning? Like maybe just mashed potatoes, corn, green beans, and steak, salt and pepper. You're good to go. And there's nothing wrong with that. I love that kind of a meal too. Do you like maybe spicy Italian food with a lot of herbs? How's your heat level? Do you like jalapenos, Tabasco, onions and garlic? Are you a barbecue fan and you love that rich campfire smoke? Do you enjoy trying new restaurants and you want to eat your way through each of the menus? Do you enjoy Asian food once in a while? How about some of that hot Asian food? Yeah. Your palate and favorite foods may open doors into the whiskey realm. Everyone's tastes are different, and your palate can change with gentle explorations and sampling, exercising your palate. Several times, I have started on a bottle of whiskey and immediately thought, didn't really care for that one. But then, after several tries over several weeks or even months, I came to like that whiskey. I've learned to not judge a whiskey too quickly, but that's just me. I treat foods the same way. I'll go back and try something again that I didn't like the first time. So know your palate. Secondly, where are you from? Where do you live? Your history, tradition, geography, and family traditions play key roles in enjoying and understanding whiskey. There are national brands that tend to represent entire nations. Here in America, Jim Beam is known the world over as the American bourbon. Crown Royal is the best-selling Canadian blended whiskey in the world. However, with the bourbon boom of the past 26 years or so, there are now hundreds of small, local craft distilleries scattered all throughout America. And if your family has a favorite whiskey that they have traditionally enjoyed, you can use that as a good reference point or starting place. A good starting place also for your whiskey journey is kind of a dual or varied approach, trying some national brands and looking around for those local brands from the small craft distilleries. However, you don't have to be bound by or limited to your geography or your family history. This is just a starting point, not necessarily the ending point. Third, which whiskeys are available and affordable for you? The internet allows you to be exposed to an enormous amount of exotic, wonderful sounding whiskeys, and then you go to your local store and you can't find them. Or you'll see the price tag, which was never mentioned in the videos you watched, and it's way beyond your budget. And so the heavy weight of realism descends upon you, and you have to settle for something less exciting. Or you do the smart thing and go to a local bar or restaurant to sample drinks instead of buying a bottle that you're unsure of. And then you get frustrated by that restaurant's limited selection. Or you don't want to pay $50 for one pour of whiskey from that special bottle that you watched the review on YouTube of. Some of the experts suggest the beginners start off with high quality, expensive bottles. I've seen many a whiskey video where they recommended for beginners to start with a bottle. When you price that bottle, it's well over $100. Okay, yeah. Start with the very best. I can see the point there, but I'm not sure I agree with it. I started at the low end, and I don't regret it at all. Each step up the ladder that I have gone has given me new surprises, expanded my palate, while allowing me to keep some cheaper bottles as favorites. One of my goals is to never grow out of enjoying a favorite $20 bottle, while simultaneously learning to appreciate the delicate craftsmanship that goes into a more expensive bottle. So, fourthly, do your research. If you have access to the internet, and if you're watching this video, I guess you do have access to the internet, you can look up some stats and watch some whiskey reviews. When you look up the question, top 20 best-selling whiskeys in America, you're going to get a wide variety of answers, usually starting with things that actually do not answer your question. The internet always seems to interpret your question in the way they want you to have instead of what you want. That's just what happens. So they're not going to answer your question immediately. You have to keep digging. The internet changes that question from top selling to just top, meaning the highest recommended by somebody, favorites of somebody. So I don't know if AI secretly drinks whiskey on the weekends or what. And there are tons of videos of people like me telling you what they think are the best whiskeys to try for beginners. So you have to keep on digging to actually get the answer for which whiskeys sell the most. And that list changes both over time, year to year, and also by the source who made the list. I have looked up whiskey statistics for years. And for the same year, you can get different lists where whiskeys are in different places, or some whiskeys are not on the list at all, and other new ones are on. And so who's making the list? I don't know. So you have to really look at several lists to get a general idea. I don't know of any one master list that's accurate. So the point is, one way to start your whiskey journey is to simply see which brands are selling the most. Popularity of a brand is one very real data point you can use, although it's not the end all be all. So you can use that for examining the top selling whiskeys in America or the world, top selling bourbons, top selling scotches, top selling Irish whiskeys, etc. And this basic level of research can give you one type of a roadmap that will guide you on your journey. So, fifth, how shall I drink the whiskey that I have chosen? Most people seem to enjoy whiskey as a mixed drink or as a cocktail. I, however, chose to start by drinking all whiskeys that I tried neat, straight up. No ice, nothing, just me and the whiskey. I wanted the real essence of the whiskey. And it's only been in the past 3 or 4 years that I finally started down the cocktail journey after 10 years of strictly neat drinks. Most people, I think, in my experience, so this is anecdotal, prefer a more gentle, sweet approach to drinking whiskey, so they mix it with something popular like a Jack and Coke, Jack Daniels and Coca-Cola, Crown and Crown, Crown Royal with Royal Crown Soda, 7 and 7, Seagram 7 with a 7 Up. All of those are incredibly popular through the years. Now, I still really do enjoy the 7 and 7 or Jack Daniels and not so much Coke, well, once in a while Coke, but IBC cream soda. Oh yeah, that'll do me. Crown Royal and Crown Royal and Royal Crown Cola. That's hard to say. But those are all nice. And I've learned to really make good old fashions. So cocktails, I'm there. Exploring cocktails and mixed drinks is one way to enjoy whiskey, but still, my preference is the neat approach. A mixed drink can be enjoyed in a plastic cup that you get at the local QT or from a barbecue joint. However, aesthetics in drinking whiskey, I think, do matter. So some basic glassware can really up your game and enhance the mood and feeling of enjoying a glass of good whiskey. So even for a Jack and cream soda, I choose to use a nice Tom Collins or highball glass. For an old fashioned, I use a rocks glass like this. Now, usually if I'm sipping neat, I'll use a Glencairn. But since this rocks glass has a fleur-de-lis on it, a symbol of the French royalty, and I'm drinking a French single malt, I thought the two go together. So for me, something like that enhances the experience. But the advantage of using a Glencairn to sip whiskey neat, the shape of the glass, the tulip shape, tends to focus the aromas of the whiskey up here, and you can smell it better and get more out of nosing the whiskey. And it's usually clear, so you can, see the whiskey and look at the colors and the oils that go with the whiskey. I use a couple of black Glencairns if I'm doing a blind tasting. And then I don't do shots, and that's what a lot of people do is they go to the bar and they want to do shots or have a party at somebody's place and do shots of whiskey. The only purpose of that is to get drunk fast, and I'm not into that and don't even recommend it. But I do have some shot glasses, and I use these as a jigger, as a measuring tool. And so if I want one pour of whiskey, I use my shot glass and pour it in, and then I mix up my old fashioned or whatever drink I'm using. And then I have some other more ornate rocks glasses, such as this. So the glassware, I think, is attractive and it enhances the experience. Now, maybe in your family, you've got Uncle Billy Bob who prefers to drink his Southern Comfort straight out of the bottle, wrapped carefully in a paper bag back in the alley, right? And he absolutely enjoys it. Well, that's fine for Uncle Billy Bob, but that's not what I'm about. Most people, however, do not really want to sip whiskey neat. It's too harsh. The alcohol burn scares them, and that's why they prefer the mixed drinks. Here is where your palate history and your willingness to explore come to play. I grew up eating hot, spicy Southwestern cuisine with plenty of jalapeno peppers or chili piquin peppers from my grandmother's garden. And chili piquins are 5 times the hot level of jalapenos. So for me, the burn of a whiskey is a good thing. I also love strong horseradish on a roast beef sandwich or a ham sandwich. And so if you like rich, spicy Italian food with a lot of oregano and Italian spices going on there, a lot of strong herbs, or maybe Asian food like some Szechuan, some hot Szechuan, or kimchi, Korean kimchi, or something from Thailand with Thai peppers in it. That's some really seriously hot stuff. Mexican food, definitely. Well, if you like all those hot and spicy foods, if you've never tried whiskey neat, I think you can handle it. But if you're just starting out and you've got that wide palate in your background, I would still suggest starting with something lower proof, 80 proof maybe, up to 86 proof, even 90. Maybe, here's a suggestion. Jack Daniel's is 80 proof. It's a Tennessee whiskey, but scientifically it's still a bourbon. It is charcoal filtered, and it's actually got a little hint of that charcoal seasoning in there. And so if you do grilled burgers or grilled steak or barbecue, you've got a glass of Jack Daniel's neat, that will go nicely together. So see, pairing your whiskey with an appropriate food can help in your exploration. Now, drinking a bright and fruity Scotch Speyside like Glenlivet with barbecue, not so much. That's not going to work. Strongly seasoned foods can completely wreck your palate for a gentle, refined whiskey. So you have to really watch what you're eating before and while drinking a whiskey. Make sure you pair those things up appropriately. Now, here are some recommendations for someone of legal age who wants to begin examining whiskey. Now, I do live in Texas, and so some of my recommendations might be Texas specific. Well, let's start with the category of American whiskey. Okay, American whiskey. Well, stand by. Let me get some props to help here. Okay, American whiskey is usually a blended whiskey here in America, and TX blended is made 20 minutes from my house here in Fort Worth. But sadly, it's now owned by the French company Pernod Ricard. But American blended whiskeys, they're going to have some neutral grain spirit in it, like vodka, as well as some straight whiskey, maybe some bourbon. But it's blended in order to be smooth, low burn, strong on certain key flavors, like with this one, vanilla. This is a vanilla bomb. This is almost a dessert whiskey. So this bottle is going to cost about $30. And because they've been bought by Pernod Ricard, this is now marketed all over the place. It started out as a Texas whiskey, and now it is marketed everywhere. It's incredibly popular. It's 82 proof, just about $30. It's got a very strong vanilla taste. Again, this is an excellent starter whiskey that can be sipped neat or mixed it with a soft drink. So it's very sweet, very dessert-like. That's a blended whiskey. Now, in the Tennessee whiskey category, I mentioned Jack Daniel's a while ago. And again, the difference between Tennessee whiskey and a bourbon, this has scientifically, it is a bourbon, but it is filtered through something like 10 feet of sugar maple charcoal. And so what that does is it strips a lot of the harshness out of here, and it adds a little bit of sweetness. And if you look for it, there's just a hint of charcoal in here. And so if you drink this with a grilled burger or steak, I think it pairs perfectly. It brings out a little bit of that charcoal flavor. So this is the best-selling American brand of whiskey in the entire world. And it's a Tennessee whiskey. Again, the mash bill here is going to be dominated by corn. I think Jack Daniel's is something like 80% corn, somewhere in that category. So this is super, very sweet. Some people get vanilla and bananas out of here. On the negative side, it does have a little bit of a magic marker quality to it, or shoe polish quality to it, that when you get that initially, it's not necessarily a positive thing. Then you've got Old Granddad from the Jim Beam family, right? Old Granddad. Now this one is under $20 a bottle, and it's a bourbon. Bourbons are inherently stronger, bolder, more harsh than almost all other whiskeys, and that's why I like bourbon so much. It is made with a recipe of at least 51% corn, and then it usually has rye, sometimes wheat, malted barley. It is possible to have 100% corn bourbon, though. And so it must also be aged in new charred oak barrels. It is that charred oak, I think, that gives bourbon its, not just its color and a lot of flavor, but also the harsh qualities in there. Now this is an 80 proof bourbon, and the TX was 82 proof. But this 80 proof is harsher than the 82 proof because it's a bourbon, whereas the other was a blended whiskey. It's got a high rye mash bill with Old Granddad. It says that right there on the label. Right there. And what rye does to a bourbon is it adds kind of a spiciness to it. And that's my favorite kind of mash bill. My favorite bourbons are the higher rye bourbons. And so this comes across with notes of roasted peanuts, a little bit of orange peel, some spice. It's a deeper, darker, like brown sugar kind of a sweetness. And this brand is one of my favorites. I mean, this is always going to be in my house. Yeah, usually the 100 proof or the 114 proof. This is the 80 proof. Makes a great old fashioned, although I like it neat, but also in old fashions. And so I've always got one of these around. And this is, again, about $20, just under $20 for that. Texas bourbons, hold on a minute. Let me find my Texas bourbon. Okay. Again, I'm going to emphasize what's good for beginners. This is a brand that I'm recommending, though, Treaty Oak. Now, this is their high-end bourbon, so this is going to be in the mid-50s. And this is looking for the proof on this. It's 47.5%, so that's going to be about a 95 proof bourbon. Okay, so this is not for beginners, but this company has one that is for beginners. Treaty Oak Day Drinker Bourbon, 80 proof for 30 bucks. And so Treaty Oak Day Drinker is a great intro to Texas whiskeys. This is a Texas bourbon. And there's 3 reasons why Treaty Oak Day Drinker is a good intro. It's under $30. It's 80 proof, and it is full of the Texas flavor. That is what I call the Texas funk. The Texas climate does things to whiskey that makes it stand out. And so some, not all Texas whiskeys have this funk. It's heavy on the wood, charcoal, sagebrush, dusty corn. It's a very distinct flavor. Now, not all Texas whiskeys have that because there's ways to control how that develops in the barrel. And so some companies don't want that. Treaty Oak, thankfully, has the Texas funk. It's one of my favorites. All right, let's look at rye whiskeys real quick. We're about out of time here. But rye whiskey is similar to bourbon in that you have to have the recipe of 51% rye. And then the rest can be corn and barley or even wheat. So American rye whiskeys, I kind of favor ryes over bourbons because they're not as sweet as bourbon. They're a bit more spicy than bourbon. And it seems to me that ryes have a more diverse range of flavors than even bourbons do. So in general, ryes are spicy, floral, and less sweet. So I've got some ryes here. There's Jim Beam rye for 80 proof, $15. And this has a bit of the rye spice flavor, but also some deeper barrel notes like leather, tobacco. Clearly, this is on one end of the rye spectrum. But on another end of the rye spectrum is something like this one, Old Overholt. This is a bit more of a classic rye flavor. It's got more rye in the mash bill, and it's 86 proof, but you don't have the deep wood notes, tobacco, or leather in this one. So it's higher proof, but still very mild, and at $21, still very affordable. And you've got something like Woodford Reserve rye. Here, Woodford Reserve, 90.4 proof for $32. This is much more of what I call a Kentucky rye, meaning that its mash bill is very close to that of bourbon. This is a 53% rye, and the rest is 33% corn, 14% malted barley. And so this is very bourbon-esque in its flavor. In fact, I did a test. I put this one and then a Woodford Reserve bourbon side by side, and I really couldn't tell the difference blind. I mixed them up to where I didn't visually know which was in which glass, but I had them numbered. Did a taste test. I really couldn't tell. And so if you're somebody who likes bourbon, but you want to try a rye, something like this would be an excellent choice to start your rye journey. All right, we are out of time. I'm going to have to do another video at some point to cover some other whiskeys in an introductory way. But for now, I hope that you would enjoy World Whisky Day. So cheers with a French whiskey called Brenne. This is Stab the Dragon out here.